Did you get that? I'm so confused.
Also, ich verstehe nur Bahnhof.
You only understand train station? It's all Greek to me.
Understanding Train Station. Living between cultures with Josh and Phelan.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode. We're happy to have you here.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yes.
We're happy to be back.
It makes me, the response of just yes makes me think of a story from one of my coworkers who was dealing with, he was a German coworker and dealing with someone else within Europe who didn't speak much English but claimed to speak English. And he asked the guy at one point, "How are you doing?" And the guy responded, "Yes."
Oh, man. I feel bad for the person because they were probably just trying their best. But was that work related?
Yeah, it was work related. I mean, it was fine in the end. It just is a funny story. But when the awkward pause and then just yes.
Yes. Or when someone asks you like, so do you like this better or that? Yes.
Yes. It makes me think of, I don't know if this happens to you sometimes too, if you're like at a concert. I had a specific incident once when I was at a concert and someone was asking me something and I just go, "Oh yeah," like I nod my head and like, "Yeah," and they look at me and like,
because you don't understand a single thing.
Yeah, and they just looked at me like side-eyed, like you didn't understand what I was saying. And I was like, "Oh no, yeah," and they were like, "No."
Yeah, that's definitely happened to me before at like clubs and those kinds of situations too. Mm-hmm. But speaking of work, how is your new job going? It's like day two?
It's day two, and that's probably why I seem a little loopy right now, is because I am not used to working so much anymore. So it has been an adjustment, but it's going well. I mean, it's the second day, so still lots to learn and people to meet and everything, but so far so good.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, I'm sure you can't really tell that much yet, but if the people are nice and it's going well so far, is it just like an onboarding week pretty much?
Yeah, it's an onboarding week, so it's just a lot of sitting in Zoom meetings, learning about the company, learning about the technology, and really informative stuff. It's really cool. I'm excited about it. It's just a lot of sitting there.
Yeah, for sure. And then also there's like so many people you're meeting. So just like both on the hour side, like just how many hours you're spending with this, but also the mental load. You just have to learn so many things, so many people, faces, names. Yeah. I think that's very overwhelming for anyone.
Yeah, like today I was in the office for the first time, and I mean, when I arrived, I basically said hi to everyone and introduced myself to everyone. I didn't remember a single name.
Yeah.
Just like too many.
That's how it always goes for me.
Yeah. Completely normal though.
How was your last trip that you did
the good old days.
Went back, before you went back into the work life?
Super nice, super nice. I was, I think I talked about the trip that I was going to go on it.
Yes, you did, yeah.
But yeah, Lübeck was super, super nice. Really beautiful city up near the Baltic coast. And then Poland just was super nice. We had this big Airbnb, I keep saying super nice, but yeah, it was a very pleasant experience.
It was like a villa, basically.
Yeah, it was like a big villa. It was like this old farmhouse that had been renovated. And if you include the basement, it was 4 stories. So you had like the ground floor, first floor, second floor, or in the US, we would say first floor, second floor, third floor, and then the basement finished like with a game area, had a sauna, had a heated pool with and this is, I still need to look up the translation for this, but a Gegenstromanlage. So like you could basically like swim. It was a relatively small pool, but you could use it as kind of like a lap pool because it developed a current for you that you could swim into. There's a nice outdoor space with like a fire pit and an outdoor dining area under like a villa or like a pet pavilion. They had bikes that we could use. They had 2 Vespas we could use to ride around. And the beach was quite close too. So it was all around super nice. It sounds super luxurious, but it was a big group of us. So it actually wasn't, it was quite affordable when you divide it up based off of the group. So yeah, it was a really fun time. And I was glad to be back in Munich, but I got a little sick while I was there too. Because like I said, it was a heated pool, but it was in northern Poland on the Baltic Sea, so it wasn't necessarily the warmest at night when we were in the pool too, so you can still kind of hear it in my voice, and I've been talking a lot too, so but yeah, all in all, really nice trip.
Yeah, it sounds amazing, and I saw a few pictures and video clips, and I'm really jealous, because like when Niklas still lived in the US, he did a few things for his birthday here, like I think twice or 3 times, maybe twice, where we all went on a trip for his birthday somewhere like within the US, and I was always able to go. And now that he's back in Germany, you can still go because you're in Germany, but I can't go. And that's really sad because that sounds amazing. And you said,
and they're always really fun trips with him too.
Yeah, and you told me the price too. That was like really cheap. What did you say? Like 100 and something?
Yeah, for 3 nights, it was 150 per person.
For the Airbnb, and then of course like food and everything.
But I mean, even with the food, it was, I think I paid $190 for the whole trip.
Wow.
So super cheap.
And then getting there, or was that included?
That was included.
For gas and everything.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Dude, Americans can only dream of those prices.
Well, okay, but I say I had to take my train to Lübeck. I saved a lot of money by taking a train because it was 40 euros from Munich to Hamburg. Then I used the Deutschland ticket, which is something new. I don't think we've talked about it in the podcast before yet, but for Americans,
I think we talked about it maybe last year because they did like this test run last summer for it, but now it's
when
like
it was the €9 ticket. Now it's 49 euros per month, and you can use all regional trains and public like city public transportation for free. Well, not for free, but for the subscription service for 49 euros. So
all over Germany.
All over Germany.
Yeah.
So I just had to pay for the fast train from Munich to Hamburg. Then I took a regional train for free, quote unquote, to Lübeck. So it was 40 to get to Hamburg and 40 to get back to Munich, and then the 190 for the trip itself. So yeah, it was a really nice time for a relatively affordable price.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've never been to Poland, so.
Yeah, I mean, I say I was in Poland, and I technically was, but I mean, I was there with a whole bunch of Germans at an Airbnb mostly. It wasn't like we were really out in any town. It was more of like a small village. So I didn't really feel like I got too much of the Polish culture. I got to experience much of that. But technically I was in Poland, yes.
I mean, yeah, you were still there. It counts.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, cool. So today we wanted to talk about a topic that has to do with us moving abroad and like the things that we did the first few weeks or months that we moved abroad. So we want to talk about things that we had never done before I moved to the US and you, Josh, moved to Germany, or the first time you went to Germany.
Yeah, I was going to say some of these are probably, some of these I guess technically I did before officially moving here 2.5 years ago, but I hadn't done before being to Germany.
Yeah, and this is actually something that I have talked about on my YouTube channel before, so I'm going to link that video somewhere, but I also try to come up with a few other points that I didn't mention in the video. So yeah, do you want to start with your first point on your list, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, and we've probably mentioned some of these before, but this is a nice consolidated list for you guys.
Yeah.
But I would say for me, the first thing I would mention is like taking public transportation. And I wasn't sure about wording it that way because in the US, I've taken like the school bus or I'd been on a plane before, which I guess technically is public transportation too. But when it comes to like city transportation, like being on a subway, I hadn't been on a subway before, that to my recollection, before being in Germany. Taking like a city bus. I don't remember taking a city bus in the US really ever.
Not even like within Cincinnati, like once? Like you'd never been on that bus? I don't think so. Ah, interesting.
I really don't think so before the first time I had been to Germany. And then especially taking a train.
Had you ever been to Chicago or something, taking the metro there, or? I
don't think before having been to Germany.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I really don't think so. Because I'd been to Chicago before, but no, it was a school trip. It was a school trip, so we had like a bus, like a charter bus that drove us around. And then other than that, it was like Ubers and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, in the US, you can get around with like Uber and all of that type of stuff. So going like public transportation isn't your go-to. Yeah. So I would say that was a huge first for me, like taking an S-Bahn. I remember sitting in Berlin for the first time, like in the S-Bahn, and I was like, oh, this is so cool.
So that's what you thought. You didn't think it was like weird or gross? Or...
No. I was super excited. I was like, this is a really cool experience. Like, and I was with a group too, and I remember thinking, oh no, we did miss someone. Like someone forgot to get off, and then we had to go pick them up. And,
oh no.
Yeah, it was a fun experience though.
So this was a school trip, or like with your...
Yeah, the first time I was ever in Germany was 2014. It was a school trip.
So with your German teacher? Yep,
exactly. So that was definitely a first. And yeah, I mean, of course, in the US, that's it really depends on your region.
Oh yeah,
but
for
in
sure.
the
If you live in New
Midwest-
York, you've
yeah.
definitely used the New York
Exactly.
subway before, and you probably think very little of it because I know that like New Yorkers always like shit on the subway because it's so
Yeah.
like old and dirty and there's weirdos. I mean, a lot of people obviously like depend on it every single day,
Yeah, of
but I know
course.
that compared to German public transportation, it's a lot dirtier and
Yeah.
has like a worse reputation, I would say.
But yeah, that's my first. What about you?
My first thing is I have never gotten like school or university merchandise before moving to the US.
You never had
And
anything from. That's
At least
that's such a
I've
foreign
never-
concept to me.
I've never gotten it myself. I have
Okay.
one LMU backpack that every Erstsemester, everyone who started school there got for free.
Okay.
That's it. And maybe there was like a pen or something in the backpack
Yeah.
as well. I don't remember. But they did have a shop, or they do still have a shop that belongs to the university where you can buy stuff like that. I mean, the choices or the selection is way smaller than it
Yeah.
would be at one of those American stores anyway. But the products technically exist, at least like t-shirts and coffee mugs and stuff like that. But I don't know a single person who would ever like go in there and buy something like that because this is not something
Yeah.
you do in Germany. You don't, first of all, high schools don't even have that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
that's not even an option anyway, or at least my school didn't. And I can't remember other schools having that. Maybe private high schools have it in Germany. But that is just not a thing. I mean, it has to do with the sports culture that we don't
Yeah.
really have school sports. Or at least not to that extent, where everyone wants to wear like we don't have like a logo that's really
Yeah.
well known and represented, and everyone
Yeah.
doesn't feel like they need to identify with the school when they go to a game or something like
Yeah.
that. Like honestly, for my school that I went to, I don't even know what the logo was. Like I'm sure I would probably recognize it if I saw it, but off the top of my head, I cannot.
I don't even know. No, I know what it. It's like you talk about going to
Oh,
LMU.
from LMU, I know that, but
You mean like your high school?
I mean my high school, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, LMU I definitely know, but like my high school, because that's just not something you
Yeah.
ever see unless like maybe when they sent out like newsletters, like printed
Okay.
letters to the parents, maybe it was
Yeah.
in the top corner, but it's just not something that they have anywhere in the school really.
Yeah.
Like you just don't come across it ever. So that's probably the number one thing, because when I first moved here, I mean, obviously I was an exchange student, and that was part of the whole experience being a student in the US, was getting that merch, going to the University of Cincinnati bookstore, and they have everything there. They have even branded like Apple products and stuff like that, or at least cases and phone cases and stuff like that, but they have everything. Every jersey for every sport that they have a team for, every kind of product, like even if it's just a notepad or something like that, you can get everything branded with UC branding. And I don't even think UC is like the biggest school for that. There's other
I'm sure
schools
it's
that
not.
go way crazy.
Yeah. Do you remember what the first thing was that you bought?
I don't have that many because I was still a little bit German at heart, but I think the first thing was a hoodie because it was fall, and I think I needed something to wear to like go to
That's
one
a good
of those
option.
games.
That's
So
a good
I have,
option.
and I still have it. It's a red hoodie with the logo, very very obvious. Like it stands out because it's completely red, so it's not like a subtle piece of merch. And I feel like other stuff we even got for free at the beginning too. Like there was always free T-shirts that
You get
and
like
stuff that.
there's no avoiding it when you go to a
Yeah.
American university.
So that's
funny.
definitely a big one. I'd never done that and was never going to do that in Germany because it's just not cool. It's not something that people do. If you do it, it's kind of awkward, and you wouldn't really wear a university or high school T-shirt if they have high school T-shirts.
Yeah.
You wouldn't really wear it in everyday life. Whereas here, people do wear those shirts just like as regular, everyday, casual clothing.
Yeah.
So what's your next one?
Drinking alcohol in public, or like in public spaces. I guess technically I've had it in public, like at bars and stuff, but like in a park, just on the street, like places where there are open container laws in the US that would prevent you from being able to do that. I definitely did that for the first time in Germany, and that was a really cool experience. Like I remember sitting in a park, and this kind of goes with, I can mention it as well, like having grilled cheese, which is something that's very It's Grillkäse in German, not grilled.
Yeah, it's not
cheese.
a grilled cheese sandwich,
Yes.
but it's actually cheese that you put on the grill.
Exactly. But I remember like just the idea of sitting in a park grilling, like people bringing their grill with them, sitting around in a park, drinking alcohol, drinking a beer, grilling in the park, like that vibe, that whole thing, that whole experience I hadn't had before being in Germany. And I think the first time I did that was when I lived in Erfurt.
Did you do it with colleagues or?
No, with my roommates, because I lived in the
okay.
VK then. So
Nice.
yeah, it was super nice, and that's still one of my favorite things about Germany. And like, if you're going to a party or you have like your Feierabendbier, they have different names for. I can think of two different names. Maybe you know other names for this thing, Feli. But like when you're on your way somewhere and you're having a beer, I know either a Wegbier, so like a Wegbier is like a beer for the way, basically, or a Fußpils.
Yeah.
Have you heard that before?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is like, Pils is like a Pilsner, and Fuß means foot. So it's a Pilsner that you drink when you're going by foot, but it's also a play on words because it is kind of also how you say athlete's foot in Germany. So, yeah.
Athlete's foot?
Yeah, like a...
Is that what that is called?
I mean, like a fungus on your foot, right?
Yeah, I didn't know that was the English term for it.
Let's see. Now you're making me wonder. Athletes. I'll look it up and then get back to you.
What a nice description. But yeah, I feel like Wegbier is more common, at least in Munich.
Yeah.
And it probably also goes
It's
hand
athlete's
in hand.
foot.
It probably goes along with the fact that in southern Germany, we don't drink as much Pilsner.
Exactly.
So I feel like I've mostly heard that from people outside of Bavaria, at least the Fußpils part. But yeah, that's a very common thing, like a pregame drink that you take with you on the way. And that happened to me a few times in the US, where like I would go to all these college parties and you would always pregame, so Vorglühen, at someone's place and then go to the actual party or go to the club or whatever. The first few weeks, I sometimes just forgot about it, and I would just casually have my beer in my hand because I wasn't done with the beer as we were leaving. So of course you just bring it and you just finish it on the way. That's at least what my German brain was thinking. And I forgot about it. And I remember there was one moment where we were all on the way walking to this party or something. And suddenly I realized, I was like, oh my God. Like, I was freaking. I was like, oh my God, I have my beer in my hand. And I was panically like looking around.
Yeah.
I was like, is there any cops here? And I asked my friends that were with me, I was like, am I going to get in trouble for this? And they were like, no, just like kind of hide it underneath your...
Yeah, I mean,
like,
especially around universities, like... You don't be stupid about it is kind of what it comes down to. But yeah, I mean, I didn't do it in the US. So that was a first for me when I was in Germany.
Yeah. And that's a big thing too. Like, for example, my brother's girlfriend just this past weekend, she celebrated her birthday and they just all met up in the park. It's like, okay, where are you celebrating your birthday? Just like in the park, everyone brings some beer, maybe grill or something like that, as you said. And that way you can use public spaces as your, if you don't have a yard, like many people in German cities do or don't do. Then you can just use the park for those kinds of things and you don't have to worry about laws and stuff like that. But at the first few weeks, I wasn't sure how strict this is. Like, I wasn't sure, can I get arrested for this? Or what's going to happen if they catch me with my beer in my hand? In the US, I'm saying like that one time that I was freaking out. But over time, I realized that some people like do this on purpose in the US too. Like, they'll just hide it in their coat pocket or something like that. And if you get caught, it's not that big of a deal usually.
Yeah, it really just depends.
It's not like you're going to go to jail for it, I think. But don't do it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know.
Don't do it.
I really don't know.
Maybe you will, but I think most of the time they'll just give you a warning and take
But still, you don't want that on your record.
No, definitely not. But for me, I was like, oh my God, am I going to be deported? I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. No, I get that for sure. I think this wasn't on my list, but like, being so afraid of the police, like in the US, I'm like, like I know how to interact with the police, especially being a white male. It's like, I mean, I'm not really that concerned about too many police interactions.
That white privilege in the US.
Yeah, and it's also just my home country. So like I never was really afraid of the police. And it's not that I'm afraid of the police in Germany, but I'm much, much more aware of like, I need to do things by the rules because I'm in a foreign country, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. But I hadn't experience this anxiety about like, oh, am I doing something wrong? Or the authorities watching?
Yeah.
Like I do here in Germany sometimes.
Yeah, even though I would argue that the police in Germany is usually not feared as much by people, but I understand your position of being like this foreigner who doesn't really know how things are handled here, and especially being the foreigner, you just feel like you're going to get in trouble more easily because they're going to be like, what are you doing in our country, not following our rules? So yeah, I totally get that.
Sorry, but I jumped ahead now. What do you have next on your list?
Okay, getting groceries at 1 a.m. That one is pretty cool and also pretty crazy to me.
Oh, I miss that. I miss it.
There are some grocery stores in the US that are open 24/7, including some like Walmarts or Kroger's or whatever grocery store. Not all of them. And I think I said this recently in a podcast episode. I feel like ever since COVID, it's actually reduced significantly. Like some Kroger's around here that used to be open 24/7 reduced their hours during COVID and then never went back.
Yeah.
So some of them are only, quote unquote, open until like 11 now or until 1 or something like that, which is still for Munich hours still pretty late because in Munich everything closes at 8 p.m. And not so in other parts of Germany. I think the longest is maybe 10 p.m. in other parts of Germany that regular stores,
I think that's right.
grocery stores close. But yeah, I remember that like that was during my exchange semester that at one point, I think me and my roommates, maybe, I don't remember if it was before we went to a party or afterwards or why we were even trying to get something at that time of the night. But I do remember that we walked into the grocery store and just got regular groceries. Just like we got some bread, we got some ice cream, and everything is just the same as during the day. You have your whole produce section, and there were some people that were actually getting groceries.
Yeah.
And which I understand, like if you're working during the day, for example, if you work shifts or something, it makes sense. But I was like, what is going on here? This feels so wrong.
Yeah, your brain just couldn't process it.
No.
But no, I miss that. It's an adjustment to not be able to go grocery shopping kind of whenever you want.
Yeah.
But I'm used to it now.
Or get a milkshake. Isn't UDF open 24/7?
I think so.
Or do they close?
I think so. For
UDF,
most of them.
UDF, it's United Dairy Farmers, is kind of a local chain, and they're gas stations, but also like dairy farmers. Like they have like little grocery stores, but they also have ice cream and milkshakes and stuff like that.
It's right? Kind of it's kind of like a hodgepodge mix of stuff that they
a bunch
have
of
there.
different things, but they're from Cincinnati, right?
Yeah, it's only in Cincinnati, or at least only in like the greater
like Cincinnati
area.
and greater Cincinnati area. Yeah, exactly. And
which
those places, for example, I'm pretty sure they're open 24/7, and you can just get a milkshake at any time of the night.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, those milkshakes are amazing too. So
don't get me started.
Okay, that was my second point. What do you have next?
Well, now I feel like I'm on my fifth point, but
okay.
I would say my next one that's worth mentioning is seeing people nude in public.
Yes.
I know that you recently came out with a video on this on your YouTube channel, and the first time I experienced it was when I was here in Munich, actually, and walking through the English Garden, and I was walking with some friends, and then all of a sudden there were a whole bunch of nude people there, and I was like, what is going on? It was such a weird experience for me, but you would never see that in Cincinnati or really in most places in the US, except at maybe like some nude beaches. But even then, it's not like those aren't really things that you stumble upon. Like,
exactly. They're usually like clearly labeled and kind of in their own little section. I also, when I did that video, I did some research on it. And apparently there's like whole nudist resorts and stuff in the US because the culture is still there, the nudist culture. But they're more just usually among themselves. They're not so much mingling with the rest of the public. Whereas in Germany, it's just going to be combined. The nudist areas are usually kind of right next to where the regular areas are.
Yeah. But that was a huge surprise for me. I was like, whoa, okay. Didn't expect that.
Yep. And you'll see that. I mean, you'll see that at the Isar too. You'll see that at lakes, beaches, like all kind. And as you said, city parks even. Not all of them. I don't think other city parks in Munich necessarily have FKK areas. So FKK stands for Freikörperkultur, which means free body culture, which is kind of the overall term in Germany for that. But so in English it would be nudism or what was it, naturism.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely city parks where you can find it.
Yeah, it was super confusing to me. It would be weird if it's not allowed in other parks, though, because you think that they would want that to be in like the parks that are a little further out from the city center, not right in the center of the city. But
yeah, I'm just more thinking like, I don't know if like, for example, in like Westpark and other little bit bigger parks, if I remember seeing an FKK area there might be. But I definitely know that in the English Garden, that's like a pretty common thing where sometimes you just happen to like sit down somewhere. Like that's happened to me and my friends where we were like, oh, this is such a nice spot. Nobody's here. And then suddenly like 3 minutes later, there's a naked person right next to you, and then you see that there's a sign somewhere. But also, even when there's no signs, it's much more common to just see not fully naked people, maybe, but at least like women sunbathing topless, for example. That even happens in the regular areas.
Yeah,
sometimes.
It definitely was something that I hadn't seen in the US before.
Yeah. And I saw that because we put the list that we both wrote down on the Google Drive. So I saw your list. You also wrote down saunas.
Yeah, that was also something. I mean, like growing up, the tennis club that I played in, they had a little sauna in like the locker room, but I never used it, nor do I think it was particularly popular. So yeah, the first time I ever was in a sauna was in Germany.
In what context?
At the gym. Also, like I have some friends who have had home saunas that I've been to. Yeah, it's just a completely different experience. I mean, I didn't know it from the US, but I know that people don't walk around naked, especially in mixed saunas. The sauna at the gym is a mixed sauna. So that wasn't an adjustment. I mean, I'm used to it now and I don't really have a problem with it. But at first you're like, whoa, okay.
So it's mixed and also you have to be naked, I'm assuming.
Yes. So, yeah, I didn't mention that. I mean, it doesn't, I don't know. Yeah, it's a textilfreie Zone. A cloth-free zone.
You can wear your towel, though.
Exactly.
Probably,
I mean,
right?
I wear my towel, but there are quite a few people who don't.
Yep. That's what I said in my video. I was like, the good thing is you don't have to be fully exposed if you don't want to, but don't be surprised if other people do.
Yep, exactly.
Yep, that's the whole thing. Are you a fan of saunas? Because I'm personally not so much.
I like them. Yeah,
okay.
I do. It's really nice. I enjoy it. That was a cool thing. I mean, the sauna in Poland wasn't particularly nice, but I also mentioned that I was in Austria a few months ago skiing, and there was a sauna in the Airbnb there too. Oh, so nice. After a long day of skiing, just to go in there and just relax. Very nice.
Yeah. So do you think sauna culture is also just bigger over there? Okay.
Definitely. For sure.
I mean, I know that that's a big topic for people like who move over there, that just going to the sauna is such a common thing where you're like, I never go to the sauna, but there's definitely saunas everywhere. Like most swimming pools, for example, even public pools have an area where it's like a sauna or sauna and Dampfbad.
Yeah.
So what is a
steam
Dampfbad?
room?
Steam room. Yeah, exactly. So those amenities are pretty common at like pools and hotels and spas and those kinds of things. So like if you go to like the water park outside of Munich, the Therme Erding, for example, like everything that's a therme, like we talked about a few episodes ago, they usually have something like that, like a sauna and stuff like that. And as you said, some people have that in their house as well. My aunt, for example, when they built their house, like I don't know how many decades ago, they put a sauna in the basement. They don't use it anymore, but I think they used it like for the first however many years because it was cool and new. They don't really use it anymore, but they have it because it's like a thing that people
have like
consider.
really small ones too, like like 2 or 3 people can fit in.
Yeah, exactly.
That they just have in their basement. Yeah.
But
yeah, what about you? What's next on your list?
Let's see. Okay, getting into money. Maybe I can summarize these two things. The one thing is I had never written a check or seen a check before I came to the US, and I feel like I don't have to say anything about this topic anymore because I've explained it so many times. So if you're curious about that, you have to listen to one of the other episodes. The other thing is I didn't have a credit card before I came to the US. And the first credit card that I actually had was a German one, but I only got it for moving to the US because I knew that I needed a credit card in the US. So I got a credit card from my German bank and actually got 2 because someone told me, well, in case you lose one, which can happen kind of a lot, especially if you're doing your exchange semester and you're partying and whatever, you should probably get 2 credit cards so that in case
you keep
lose
both
the
of them in your wallet or did you keep one at home?
I think I always kept one at home. That's a good question because I definitely never usually brought my wallet when I went out in the US because
okay, true.
Yeah, that was another thing too, actually. Like in Germany, I would never really leave my home without my wallet, even when going to the club and stuff. I mean, sure, sometimes I would maybe just pack the necessary stuff, but there's so many cases where you need cash that like I feel like except for really going clubbing and going to Oktoberfest or something like that where a big wallet is hindering, except for those occasions I would usually bring my entire wallet because you don't want to have to carry on all the change and stuff like that, especially if you're a woman, you don't have big pockets, blah blah blah. But in the US you never really need cash, even when you go out to the bars and stuff. Like they all accept credit cards or debit cards, any kind of plastic. So I would usually just pack my ID and a card and that's it. I would just have 2 cards and that's all I needed for the whole night usually, which was different from going out in Germany. But the whole credit card thing is just, you don't really need one in Germany. They're not very common in Germany. I mean, they're definitely getting more common, but you don't usually need one for everyday life or for online shopping. Sometimes for online shopping, but nowadays it's usually you can use PayPal and other payment options or even just wiring the money. I feel like debit card in Germany, at least EC-Karte, I don't really think you can use that a lot for
I use my regular.
shopping.
It's not an EC-Karte, but I have used my regular debit card that I got from my bank for all my online purchases like that.
Okay, not
Or
everyone
PayPal.
had, at least back in the day. I think it's becoming more common, but not every German bank account gives you an actual debit card that is like a Visa or one of those brands debit card. So like at least for me, like at Sparkasse, I always only had an EC-Karte, so the Maestro. Which is not.
But you could use that to get money from a ATM, but not.
Yes, and you can pay at the stores usually too.
certain stores.
I mean, most stores that like accept cards, but it's not an international debit card. So like if I brought it to the US, I think I would be able to pull money with it, but they wouldn't really accept it everywhere because like for online shopping, I don't think it has all the requirements that you can use it for online shopping. Not 100% sure about that one, but I remember like basically what I'm trying to say is when most people do have a card, but it's not necessarily a credit card in Germany where you actually take out credit basically, where you pay with money that isn't coming right from your bank account. So that's how a credit card works, right? That you have a certain credit limit and you can spend that money without actually spending it. So you're basically taking a credit with your bank. And then at the end of the month or whenever you want to, you pay the debt back to the bank, basically, which is a super common thing in the US. And I remember back in the day, I never understood how in these movies, in these American movies, when there were always these shopping scenes where they would like take out 4 different credit cards or something like that and be like, oh, it's okay. Like I'm rich basically because I have 5 different credit cards, or just put it on the credit card. It doesn't matter. I never understood back in the day how that worked because I was like, wait, but even if you pay with card, you need to have the money. But no, that's not how credit cards work. And the funny thing is even a lot of German credit cards, they're credit cards officially, so you can use them in the US as a credit card, but they technically in the background don't work like a credit card. So like the first one that I got was a prepaid credit card, which is like you book money, like this was for my German bank. You book money like onto the card, and then you use it as a credit card. So like all the different places in the US will recognize it as a credit card, but I'm not actually taking a credit with my bank. I already prepaid the money. Do you know what I mean? Like it's...
Yeah. I mean, I had something similar with my first credit card in the US.
Oh, okay.
Where it was something that was offered for people who didn't have any credit history, but like, or like had a poor credit history. Basically, you would front or like... you would basically pay the bank or say, here's the money that I want to be my credit limit.
Yeah.
They would hold on to that and then you would use it as a credit card and still pay it back and everything. But that money was always in the background in case you couldn't pay off your credit card. So it was like a safe way of beginning to learn how to use a credit card. But it doesn't sound like it's quite the same thing that you had, but
not 100%. But basically I was just trying to get to the point that credit cards aren't very common in Germany. They're not really needed in a lot of cases, and not a lot of people feel the need, because we talked about how Germans don't really like to be in debt. Not a lot of people feel the need to have a credit card for the purpose of spending money that they don't have. Now, when you come to the US, that's a different story sometimes, because sometimes you need a credit card for certain things. I remember that, for example, for like renting a car and stuff like that. At least back in the day, it was kind of difficult to do it without a credit card. And yeah, basically that's why when I first came here, I made sure that I got a credit card. And then later on, when I decided to stay here, this is also part of my point, is not just getting one, but also getting several credit cards just to build the credit score. And I think we talked about the credit score in our one episode about money and student loans and stuff like that. It's this whole system where you basically need to take out loans in the US in order to get a larger credit score or higher credit score that then allows you to do different things, like get a mortgage from the bank, get a loan on a car, or even for insurance. Like when I first got my car insurance, they quoted me a higher rate because my credit score was low, because I had never taken out any loans in the US.
Which now that I think about that, that's kind of crazy for car insurance, you know? Like,
yeah, like why? Like you have no reason.
I never, when I lived in the US, I never used to question it because it's just so normal. But now that you mention that, I'm like, it doesn't have anything to do with car insurance unless there's some sort of, I'm sure there's probably actually some sort of correlation between people who have better credit scores being better drivers, at least would be my my thought process. But that's so weird.
I know. I think it's pretty random. And that's why also at the beginning, when I first knew that I was going to stay here a little bit longer, I didn't start building my credit score right away because I was like, I'm not trying to take out any credit.
Yeah.
Like I don't think I ever need that. I don't plan on, doing that here anytime soon. But I didn't realize that it had an impact on those other things, like car insurance. I knew that I was buying a car. I was buying a used car in cash. Like I didn't need to take out a loan for it. But then that came around and I was like, damn it. So then I went ahead and got a bunch of credit cards. Well, not a bunch. I got one first, then I got my second one like 2 months later or so, because the more credit cards you have, the more debt you're basically putting on. Like if you use the credit cards, you're basically using double the credit, double the loans, and then you build your credit score faster.
Yeah, there's a whole way to game the system a little bit.
It's weird. It's weird. Basically, the way to build your score in the US is you have to take out those loans, but then pay them off. So basically, I would just then, instead of paying stuff with my regular debit card, I would pay it with my credit card and just pay it off right away. So like for me on my end, there was like no difference really in the money I was spending, but I was putting it on the credit card, paying it off right away, which then shows them that you're a responsible loaner. I guess, is that the word?
Yeah, I don't know. My brain isn't working for finance finance talk right now. But
this was the most complicated point I had on my list, so we can move on now. But I probably, if I still lived in Germany, I wouldn't even have a credit card, or maybe I would have one for traveling or something like that.
I still have my American one, but other than that, I don't have a credit card in Germany.
Dude, I have so many now.
I know. I mean, in the US, it makes sense because you get lots of different points. But I think we've covered this topic pretty extensively in the one finance episode.
That's true.
So if you guys are interested, definitely go and check that one out.
Yes. Okay. Your next point.
My next point is, I don't think I'd ever had a soft-boiled egg before moving to Germany. Super random and very different than our previous topic.
Ein weich gekochtes Ei. Oder ein weiches Ei.
But I feel like it's super common, like in German breakfasts, to have like you have like the little holder for the egg. Like it's like a little dish that the egg sits upright in.
Yeah, it's an Eierbecher.
And then you decapitate the egg. And, or what is there's also give me 1 second.
Okay.
So, I forget the exact name for this, but my roommates from my first flat, my first WG here in Munich got me this. And it is called what is it? Eier-Sollbruchstelle-Verursacher, I think is the technical name for it.
I think so. Hold on, Eier-Sollbruchstellenverursacher. Yep, perfect.
And it is a machine. You can see here, for those of you who are just listening, you'll have to go over to the YouTube version to see what I'm talking about right now. But I'm holding this little, it's basically a device that is used to break open your soft-boiled egg in the place where it's supposed to be broken or opened. So you put this on top of the egg and then you pull this up and then it snaps back down and it like cracks the egg properly for you. I'd never seen one of these before, nor had I believe, a soft-boiled egg. But I love them now. I never
That's
make
German.
them, but I really enjoy them.
German engineering for you right there
Yes.
with that thing.
And also just
Especially,
the name too. It's
yes,
like
very long name.
such a German name for it.
Long and descriptive, but also it's like one of those things that you don't necessarily need. Like
No,
I know
not
that
at
a lot of Germans probably swear by it. My family never had one because we would just take our knife
Yes,
and just
exactly.
cut open the egg.
I've never used it, but I have it.
It's definitely a good thing to have. Probably it makes you more German. Next time that you have like a appointment at the Behörde, just bring that and be like, "Look, I'm actually German at heart."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I don't have all the documents I need, but
I got this.
I have an Eiersollbruchstellenverursacher.
I mean, it doesn't get more German than that. Like, talk about integration.
Yes.
For me as a kid, soft-boiled eggs were like the highlight of my weekend breakfast. Like they
So
were so
good.
much fun to eat, and it's funny too because eggs are such a common thing to eat for breakfast in the US.
Yeah.
But when you go to a restaurant, for example, and you have like a dish where it's like it's eggs with bread and slices of bacon or whatever, they'll always
Yeah.
ask you how do you want your eggs. But soft-boiled is not usually a common
It's
option
not an
there.
option,
I mean, I'm sure you
no.
could probably ask for it, but yeah, it's like
I
fried,
don't know.
scrambled.
Yeah, fried, scrambled, sunny side up. Yeah, it's I forget all of the other options. I always
Over
get them
easy
scrambled.
or something like that.
Yeah, over easy. But like I grew up having hard boiled eggs, but not soft boiled eggs.
Yeah. So that's definitely a thing. And then as a kid, we would always, at least in my family, we would have a piece of toast with butter on it, cut it in stripes, and then dip it into the soft-boiled egg.
Strips,
That was my
yeah.
favorite childhood. Yeah, strips. Yeah.
Yeah.
What did I say?
Stripes.
Same thing. Strips.
Same difference. Exactly. But yeah, what's next on your list, Feely?
Okay, here's a big one. I had never, before I moved to the US, shot a gun.
Ooh.
Yeah. And then I shot a gun.
I still can't believe that you shot a gun. Didn't you go with another
Sabina.
German? Yeah.
Yep. I mean, it's not that baffling. I
No.
never really felt the need to do it. But she was about to leave the US. She was only here for a year. And she was like, hey, like before I leave, I kind of want to knock this off the bucket list.
Yeah.
Do you want to do it with me? And I was like, sure, I've never done it myself. So yeah, we went. And so now I can say that I've done that.
Was it super easy for you to get that all organized? Did you go with Americans or was it just the two of you?
It was just the two of us.
And you just went to a shooting range, rented a gun, bought the ammunition, and
You
were
just
good to
go there and it's like going bowling. You just
Yeah.
go there. They ask you like
Yeah.
how many rounds, I guess or I don't fully remember how the pricing worked, but I think it's like how many rounds or so, or like how many guns do you need? I think we just got one for the two of us. And then, yeah, they just give you all the stuff that you need. They give you a quick introduction. I mean, they show you, they go in there with you at first and they show you how it works and like all the safety measures that you need to take. And I mean, I think they also watch you through the glass. So
Yeah,
like if you
there's
were to be
normally-
super unsafe,
Yeah.
then they would come in and tell you, hey, you can't do this. Like, for example, obviously you can't point the gun at someone that's in the room with you and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then you can pick which targets you want to use too, which we just used like a regular round target.
Yeah, I
and
remember
you
you
can,
talking
like,
about this.
Yeah, you can move it like further back or closer up. And the person next to us was using a human-shaped target. That's
Yeah, I mean, that's normally what I grew up kind of shooting, and yeah, I mean, it's normal to use, I mean, in the US, it's relatively normal to have one. It's not like, it doesn't look like a human per se, but it's like the outline of a human.
I mean, it has a head, it has the,
Yeah.
and you have...
Yeah, I mean, it's not like a detailed drawing of a human is basically what I was
No,
saying, but
no, no,
still. No, I mean, it's
It's
obvious
not a
that
round,
you practice.
yeah.
No.
You can practice to shoot in the head if you want to,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was pretty fucked up from where I'm coming from. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I mean, I understand, like, for example, if you're actually training to... But I feel like you can train target with any target. You don't necessarily need to do it like that. But I guess if your goal is self-defense or whatever, military or whatever, and actually shoot a human at some point, that might make sense. But to me, that's still a very messed up concept that is actually, like... Yeah, I don't ever want to shoot a human. So, yeah, but that was a very American experience, definitely, that I would not have been able to just do in Germany.
No.
And
Definitely
that's
not
also-
that easily.
No, and it's also one thing that a lot of Americans always ask about whenever I say I'm for stricter gun control. They're like, oh, you just have to go and shoot a gun. You'll notice that you don't have to be scared of the gun. It's like, yeah, even worse. You should be scared of the gun.
I think I've talked about this on the podcast before, but a few times back when I went to visit the US, I went shooting again, and I felt quite uncomfortable. I think I mentioned it on the podcast. But like for me, it was so normal back when I lived in the US, and then I went back and like none of these people seem to really be knowing or seem to really know what they're supposed to be doing in this shooting range. It just I felt really unsafe there, which I don't know why. It was a weird sensation for me because I'd been to this gun range many, many times before, but all of a sudden I was like, I don't feel comfortable here. So,
and sometimes your perspective changes after you move abroad for a while.
So yeah, maybe we do 2 more each, Faylee, and
go ahead.
We can't end on something like that. No. But I would say next to my list was I'll say riding a bike to work / for transportation, and I absolutely love it. It's so nice. It's so nice. I just remember when I was in Erfurt. I didn't ride my bike to work, but I rode it for transportation all of the time, or like with my friends to go someplace. And that was something I just didn't really experience in the US, or I haven't experienced in the US since I was a little kid. And I always equated it to like when I was in Erfurt, and even now when I ride with friends, it's just a weird experience that I'm still not like completely used to. Like I almost feel like I'm in Harry Potter riding on broomsticks in a group of people. It's such a weird analogy, but I really, really enjoy it.
Like you mean when you're with a group?
Yeah,
yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
it is cool, and I really enjoy it. And
that's what I did every day going to school. We were always a group of like 5 girls or so riding our bikes to school every day. And yeah, you're right. Because like you're kind of like sometimes you have to fall behind each other if there's like someone coming your way. Yeah. Sometimes you can ride next to each other and you're kind of floating around in this group. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. It's a great experience. And it's one of my favorite things about being here in Europe is being able to walk and ride my bike places.
But I know you had a bike in the US too, but you didn't necessarily ride it for transportation, basically, is what you're
sometimes
saying, right?
I would try, but mostly I would ride it just for like sport or like for exercise.
I remember one time we even went together. I got our friend Cynthia's bike, I think, for like one day. And we took the bikes, we put them in the car, drove somewhere to the parking lot, then dropped off the bikes, and then we like biked on this bike path, and then we went back to the car, which was like a super American experience for me, because in Germany you'll just, obviously if you go on a bike tour, you start at your house.
Exactly. No, that's a very American thing, I feel like, and it's sad because you kind of almost have to, because riding a bike on some roads, especially, I don't know about in other parts of the US, but in the Midwest people aren't used to seeing cyclists on the road, so it can be quite dangerous, but I think it's generally a US phenomenon as well.
Yeah, for sure. And there's not a lot of bike lanes or bike racks. Like there's no infrastructure for bikes. I mean, I know that in Oregon, for example, I think in Portland, for example, it's a little bit better. And
I think Boulder, Colorado is supposed to be really good for cyclists.
Yeah.
So you find little
I know
hot
there are
spots,
some hot spots. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's on my list. Would you have anything else to add to that before telling us your next one?
No, I don't think so, but it's definitely one of the things that I miss. And I know we've mentioned it before. So, riding your bike is a lot of fun. It just makes you feel so free when it's like that's your way to work or your way back from work. And it's pretty and it's nice weather out. It can also suck sometimes if it's raining or in the winter, because we would also ride our bikes to school in the winter. Yeah. And that was not so much fun.
No.
Okay, next up. And this can be my last thing, and then maybe I'll just like read you the rest of the list like briefly. I had never used a tampon with an applicator. And now I know that all the probably guys are going to be like, oh my God, we're talking about tampons? I don't know if I want to keep listening. Don't worry, it's not as disgusting. Yeah, it's not as disgusting as you think. It's a regular human thing that half of our population has to deal with. But tampons in the US, at least by default, are kind of different than the regular tampons in Germany and other European countries. Because there, your tampon is like this cotton thing, right? And you just buy the cotton thing and then you just put it in with your fingers in kind of like a natural way. In the US, I think it probably goes together with like this whole fear of nudity, and maybe it's also hygiene aspects. I don't know, but most tampons come with this huge plastic thing. And at first, because you don't see it at first, you just like see the tampon wrapped up in plastic.
I didn't know what a tampon looked like. I mean, I didn't realize it was that small for the longest time because I'd only seen the
I mean, you'd think, what the fuck are they putting in their bodies? Because basically it's like, I'm so bad at guessing, but it's probably like 7 to 10 centimeters long in the US, the whole thing, and it's wrapped in plastic. And then you open it, and then you'll notice that half of that is actually the applicator part. So like the tampon is wrapped in this plastic case, and it has like a stick or what would I describe that as? Like a long piece at the end that you then push to get the tampon out, basically. So it's like this construction, like this mechanism of just like pushing the tampon out. It's almost like a plunger
type thing, yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so you put that in your body, and then you push it in, and then you take the plastic thing back out, and so you have this little helper, this little applicator that you then throw away, though. So like to me that seems like so much waste also, because the thing, like first of all, all the tampons come in a box, of course, and then they're all wrapped separately, and then inside the wrapping you have more plastic.
It's not like there's one applicator per box.
No, they already come in an applicator, so there's so much plastic waste. At the same time, like I understand, you don't have to wash your hands as much afterwards, But most women who have used the other tampons that are without an applicator say that it's completely unnecessary. And I did it my whole life without one, and it's really not that big of a deal. But that was a first.
Can you get tampons without applicators in the US?
Yes, you can if you look for them. Okay. I don't know if it's gotten more, because I remember the first few years that I was here, I didn't realize that some of the stores, I think Meyer, whatever it's called, has the OB brand, that is the most common one in Germany and Europe. Okay. I would sometimes bring a full box of OBs in my luggage with me to the US, and I still sometimes do, because even the OBs here are slightly different than the ones in Germany. Yeah. Or you could order them on Amazon and stuff like that. But yeah, also American tampons then act differently when they're in your body. And now we can move on, because now it's good. But they're kind of falling apart more and blowing up in they're kind of built differently so that they react in a different way, which I don't like that much. So I prefer German tampons.
Very interesting.
But yeah, that's my last point.
I would say then my last point, and then I can do the same thing for a few other I have a few other points written down, but we can go through them relatively quickly or just read them off. But the last one I would comment on is going through a summer without AC. I'm lucky now that where I work, and my last two employers now, or my current and last employer, both had air-conditioned offices. But my first employer here in Germany, it was not an air-conditioned office. So I didn't have air conditioning at home. I didn't have air conditioning in the office. So I really went an entire summer without any air conditioning. And it was an experience, sitting there, everyone having their fans blowing on them.
It made you tough.
Yeah, it was not a pleasant experience. It was quite a warm summer that year too. But that's just unthinkable to Americans. What do you mean there's no AC? Is what the reaction I get all the time. But yeah, it was, I don't regret it. I'm glad that I've been able to experience it. And I realized it's doable. It's not pleasant, but it's doable. Yeah. Especially in Germany. I think if you were further south, it would not be doable. I mean, you hear about people in Spain, I know a couple people die almost every year in Spain from the heat. So, I mean, but in Germany in general, you can manage.
Yeah. That actually reminds me of the last episode of Ted Lasso. It's a TV show that was on Apple Plus, and I loved it. And they just had the show, the series finale a few days ago. And it's about this American football coach who comes to England to coach a soccer team, so British football. And at the end, after these 3 seasons, he goes back. Oh, spoiler alert. But he's on the plane.
Way to put the spoiler alert before the spoiler.
Sorry, guys. Well, I feel like that's not even the big. Like you already, if you've watched the show, you already know it ended. So he goes back at the end, and he's on the plane, and he says, "Yeah, I learned a lot while being in London. Like one thing I learned is that having AC is not a right; it's a privilege."
Yes,
and that's what that reminded me of.
Exactly.
And yeah, I mean, in Germany, like. Even growing up without it, it's sometimes unbearable, especially I remember in school, like sometimes it was just insane to concentrate. Do American high schools have AC?
Yeah, oh yeah, of course.
Okay, yeah. I assumed so, but I wasn't
remember
100% sure.
We have snow days and you guys sometimes have heat days.
Yes, hitzefrei.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it gets too hot. Well, you guys have snow days when there's 1 centimeter of snow on the ground.
Or no snow, because they call it the night before and then the snow never comes.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But anyway, yeah, we have hitzefrei when it gets like above a certain degree for the full day because they're like, yeah, people can't concentrate in those temperatures. And then, of course, you're sitting in these classrooms where like maybe the sun is shining in through the windows and everyone's sweating because you're all teenagers. Like it's not a pleasant experience, as you said. And then also if you have a room or an apartment that's like in the attic, like underneath the roof. Like I, for example, my bedroom at my parents' place that was like underneath the roof. It gets really hot there, but Germans develop all these like really clever strategies to keep cool. Like, for example, you have the whole method of closing your blinds and curtains at the right times of the day. Yeah. I think we talked about this at one point.
Yeah, in the morning you open up all of the windows, get all of the cool air, and then close them, close the blinds, close the curtains, close everything.
Yeah, then you put up your fans, of course. Like, that's definitely a thing, ventilatoren. And then you can put, like, wet towels or something in front of it to make it cooler. There's, like, all this science about it. Yeah. How to survive without an AC. But honestly, now that I live in the US with AC, I definitely feel you, especially in certain rooms and offices where it gets really hot.
Yeah, for sure.
It's difficult.
But yeah, what else did you have on your list if you just want to read through the rest of them?
Yes. Okay, so I got turn right on red, like when driving. We talked about that in our driving episode. That was something I'd never done before I came here. I had never eaten from plastic utensils at a 4-star hotel, going back to the thing that I talk about sometimes about the disposable dishes.
You mean you don't like using plastic utensils, Phoebe?
I do not. But also, I was surprised that even at like nicer hotels, the breakfast buffet had those. Like not necessarily for other meals, but for breakfast, that was always the go-to thing where they would have the disposable like cups and stuff like that. And
Interesting.
Disposable plates. Anyway, I had never squished all the bread at the store before I moved to the US. Now, whenever I buy bread at the store, I like go through and like I touch them all and see how soft they are. Most of them do not pass the test. I had never ordered a drink without ice because it's not necessary to do that in Germany. But here in the US, that sometimes happens that I will order something and be like, yeah, but can I get that without ice, please? So that not half of the drink is just ice cubes. I had never paid for gas at the pump, at the gas station. Definitely talked about that one a few times. That is a thing in Germany now, at least. I mean, maybe it was already a thing years ago. But at least
still not super common.
It's not super common. I think the only places where I've seen it was outside of the city in more like rural areas where they just don't really have maybe the employees or just don't want to or don't have as much traffic there that they need to have an employee or an attendant there the entire time. So I did it. I've done it in Germany since, but I had never done it before I came to the US. That was completely new to me and I thought it was freaking genius. Like how cool is it that I can just pull up to the pump, get my gas, well, pay first, I guess, put my credit card in first, get my gas. I don't have to talk to anyone. I don't have to worry about what I look like. I don't have to get in line. Yeah. That was pretty cool.
It's a nice life.
Yes, and lining up with the whole driving experience, I had never gone through a drive-through ATM or all the other drive-through things that they have in the U.S.
Pharmacies.
Liquor store. Yeah, pharmacy.
Liquor store, yeah, like you said.
What else? Well, drive-through Starbucks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I was obviously familiar with drive-through McDonald's, but I thought it was genius that all these coffee shops and other places have it too. So that was definitely a thing. And drive-through ATMs are kind of a common thing in my life now. Like sometimes I have to deposit a check and it doesn't work on the app for whatever reason. And then I go to the ATM and deposit it there, or whenever I do need cash, which doesn't happen a whole lot, but sometimes. And then I usually go to a drive-through one. And last but not least, I'd never punched a hole in the wall before I moved to the US. And disclaimer, I have never actually punched a hole.
What?
I've never punched a hole myself into the wall, but I have seen it happen. I've literally witnessed it. And it's also happened to me that like I was like trying to screw something like at my old office in my old at my old place. Like, for example, I had these hooks in the ceiling, like in the slanted ceiling, so it was drywall. And when I tried to put it in, half the thing came crumbling down. So I guess I kind of put a hole in it. And like one time, for example, my roommate was moving into also that old house, and they were trying to carry up the couch or the bed. It was a big piece of furniture, and they were trying to carry it around the stairs, and they all hit the wall with it, and there was a pretty big hole in it afterwards. So yeah, but I have also literally witnessed people punching the wall, and it left a hole, and that's also a big thing in movies. And it's not something that works in Germany. If you try that, you're probably more likely to break your hand, so don't do it.
Bad idea. Bad idea for sure.
It's actually like a really interesting thing. I might make a video about that at some point, but just you experience it as soon as you're in the country. If you just see construction sites, you'll see American construction sites, and it's all just wood, just a wood skeleton that will then get drywall and all other kinds of stuff. Whereas in Germany, if you see a house being built, it's going to be all brick or cement, or what's the other word for concrete. But most of the time it's bricks. And then you'll just see the brick walls coming up. And even the indoor walls are usually brick, which makes it a lot harder to do like renovations and DIY stuff. Like I realize now that we do all this DIY stuff in our house, how nice it is with the drywall in terms of being flexible. It's not nice in terms of insulation and those kinds of things. Like you can hear a lot through the walls and stuff, but you can just take a handsaw and cut a hole in your wall because it's just this like really thin piece of drywall, and then you can technically add a new outlet or light switch or whatever. You can pretty much do it yourself because behind that, the wall is hollow for the most part, and so you can then like just use it to put a wire through it and move stuff around. So for home renovations, the flexibility, it's really nice. But
I just ran into the issue here the other day when I was trying to hang something. And like
it's difficult.
It's much more difficult in Germany. I feel like I need like a jackhammer.
You do that. I mean, you need eine Bohrmaschine.
Yeah,
is what you usually need. I mean, depending on the walls you have.
I mean, I was able to get away with a little tiny, I put two little nails next to each other, and it worked out because I had a hammer. But I started to just try to drive a screw into the wall. And the wall started to like crumble, and I was like, no.
You usually, so if you have to hang up something heavier where a nail is insufficient, I would just, back in the day, I would have my dad come over, and he would bring the Bohrmaschine, and then you drill the hole into the wall, then you put an anchor in, and then screws and all of that. But it's tricky for sure. And if you screw up, it's not, I mean, you can still spackle it, but it's not as easy of a fix as in the U.S. So,
which I mean, it is still common in the U.S. to use anchor, like to use a drill and an anchor and stuff, but it's like necessary here.
Doing that kind of stuff like here, so for example, Ben, we do a lot of DIY stuff, and if we have to drill a hole in the wall first, he can just use his regular Elektroschrauber. So like his regular electric drill, that's a screwdriver drill. And in Germany, you usually have a whole other power tool.
I think it's called a compact.
Is just for drilling.
I think it's called a compact drill in English. It's much
or isn't
stronger.
There a hammer drill or something like
Maybe
that?
Maybe it's a
also,
hammer drill. I forget
where
exactly
it makes
what
like
called.
the movements where it just, I don't know how to describe it, but it's not so much like drilling around only, but it's also, it can do other movements. Anyway, that was my last point. Back to you, Josh.
I'll read I don't have many left on my list, but having a kebab, I'd never had that before. In the US, we don't really eat them, at least in the Midwest. In Cincinnati, I don't really know of any place where you can get like a typical doner kebab. Even though, like, of course, Germany is known for them, but you find them throughout Europe as well, like just kebab stores or places where you can get them. I'd never had one before coming to Germany. I'd had a gyro, but not kebab.
And gyros.
And gyros, yeah.
It's like really hard to understand by the way that you pronounce it. So many Americans pronounce it like that.
Yeah.
It sounds like
Euro,
the currency, euros.
I don't know what the proper pronunciation is. I'll have to ask some Greek people I know. But yeah, so having a kebab. What else do I have on here? Hiking to the summit of a mountain. I'm thinking about it. And I think the first time I did that was in Germany, which was a cool experience. And also skiing on a mountain. Like, we've talked about that before. And I've skied on a hill, but not on an actual mountain. Yeah. But it's a really cool experience to get to the top of the mountain and especially in the Alps and just look and you see mountains as far as the eye can see. That was the first experience for me. Telling a server directly how much I want to tip them. Like, that was a weird experience for me at first because in the US, we've talked about this. You write it down on a piece of paper or like on the receipt and then they process it later and they look at it after you leave.
Or if you tip in cash, you just leave it on the table.
Yeah, exactly. But to look at a waiter, the waiter or a server tells me how much my bill was, and then I tell them directly how much I want to pay, including tip. That was a weird experience. I hadn't done that before.
Yeah, I feel like that would be a huge culture shock.
Mm-hmm. I don't have this one on my list, but it just came to me. But using a deposit system for like fund. I hadn't done that before in the US. Not only when it comes to like regular bottles that you'll get at the grocery store, but also at like festivals or concerts or various events where you get like a plastic cup. In the US, you just get the plastic cup and then you throw it away. Whereas in Germany, it's oftentimes the case that you'll get a token with it as well. And you pay. And then when you bring it back, you get the token, or you give the token back and you bring your cup back and then you get a little bit of money back. I hadn't done that before in Germany.
Yeah.
What else do I have on here? Having my fingerprints taken. I don't think that necessarily has to do with Germany per se, but moving abroad and getting a visa. That was a completely new experience for me. So now I'm in the international database.
Yeah, I had to do that too. Like, I think even if you enter the US as a tourist, you have to do that.
Okay.
Whereas I don't think when you enter Germany as a tourist, I don't think you have to do that.
No. Maybe it's changed now, but I never have at immigration directly on the border like had to do that. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, but when you go to the US, they'll usually, when you travel to Germany like back in the day and then went back to the US, do you like as a citizen always have to do it when you enter the US? No? Okay.
I don't think so. think so.
So yeah, for me, I feel like I think with global entry they didn't anymore. I think. But usually, like almost every time that I'm at the border entering the US, whether it was on my student visa or tourist, they always take your fingerprints. And also then they take it when you apply for the visa at the consulate or embassy. Yeah. So there's a lot of fingerprint taking.
Lots of fingerprinting going on.
Yeah.
And my last two were drinking.
That's a cute word.
Drinking sparkling water without flavor. I've gotten quite used to it now and I quite like it. I mean, when I'm really, really thirsty, I still prefer still water. But yeah, that was a first for me. And last but not least, cooking a turkey by myself. I did that. I've talked about how I try to throw a little Thanksgiving gathering here in Munich with my friends each year. But the first time I did that, like the first time I actually made the turkey all by myself was here. So yeah, that's my list of things that I did for the first time after moving to Germany.
Cool. I feel like that was a lot of interesting information right here. Bunch of things that we had definitely mentioned before, but also maybe a few things here and there that we hadn't really fully mentioned. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let us know in the YouTube comments, and I'll also put like one of those question thingies on Spotify where you can maybe let us know about things that you had never done before going abroad, visiting another country, or moving abroad even. Thank you guys for listening. Thanks to Josh for doing this episode after such a long work day, because you were in the office very late.
It's been a very long day.
Like it's close to 10 p.m. for you.
Yeah, I'm going straight to bed after this.
Damn. Yeah, I appreciate it. We all appreciate it.
No, I'm happy
good
to
luck
do it.
for the... Yes, still. Good luck with the rest of your work week. Your first
Thank
work
you.
week. The good thing is you have a holiday today. That the day that this episode is coming out is actually a holiday in Bavaria.
Thank
One
God.
of many, many holidays. So that always
Yes.
comes in handy.
Definitely. But no, thank you everyone for listening. And if you have anything that you want to contribute and tell us some of the things that you've done for the first time while being abroad, make sure to leave us a comment and let us know.
Yes, and we will be back in 2 weeks on Thursday.
See you then.
Cheers.